Hello, this is Faith at Faith and Books, and I'm going to give a brief book review of a book I finished. I feel like I'm starting the year off so slowly because I don't have as much time to read as I used to have, and I've been reading this very slow going Chunkster, The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. And I just having a rough time getting going with reading. And so I finally completed a book, and it's The Complete Little World of Don Camillo by Giovanni Guareschi. And I've talked about this a couple of times before, but it is such a delightful book. I just wish more people knew about this book and the whole series. So there's stories about this guy named Don Camillo, who is a priest, a parish priest in kind of a backwater village in the Po Valley, in what they call the Lower Plain. And the people are poor, they're peasants, they're not that well educated, and they've just lived through this hellish period of time in Italy, World War One, Il Duce, Mussolini, then the Nazi occupation, and then World War II, and then all the political upheaval after the war, where the communists and other parties were trying to fight it out, and that their king gets deposed and sent into exile, and so it was just such a time of political upheaval, and so this is right after World War II in this little village. And it's been so ravaged by the Nazis. There's still landmines around, and people have access to like machine guns and mortars and things like that. So it's very violent. There's a lot of violence, but the violence is kind of a cartoonish level. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like Popeye and Brutus fighting each other. Don Camillo is this big, powerfully built, very strong guy, and he's feuding with the communist mayor of the village, Pepone, who's similarly built, also huge and very powerful, and they both have terrible problems with their temper, and they've both grown up in this very turbulent time, and but one went communist and the other one became a priest. And they've even fought together in the mountains. So they know each other really, really well. And this feud has just been going on forever. And both of them are portrayed really humanely, even though the violence is kind of cartoonish, but sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it's really shocking. But both characters there's such a sense of humor throughout the book. It's really funny. And the humor is kind of absurd and just very ironic and tongue-in-cheek kind of humor. And then the third main character, there's a lot of villagers that, it's really a short stories strung together with like loose references to other short stories, but you could read the short stories on their own as well. I think they were first published in magazines. What was I going to say? Wait a second. About the author. The author himself was a reporter and a cartoonist, and he kept getting into trouble. He was arrested by the fascists, and then he refused when the Nazis came in. He refused to fight with them, so they sent him off to a prison camp. And then after he got released from the prison camp, he was, a critic of the new government, and so they arrested him too. So he spent time in and out of jail because of all the politics. But the character of Don Camillo is based on a priest he met in the prison camp. And the priest's name actually was Don Camillo. And that priest was sent to the prison camp because he had been helping Jews escape to Switzerland. So Giovanni Guareschi, that guy, was really impressed by him. So a few years later, when he was writing for newspapers and magazines, he started writing these short stories based on that priest, but putting him in this little village where Guareschi had grown up. have been born and grown up. I mean, it's a fictional village, but it's in that Po River Valley. So it's a really, really delightful collection of stories. I'm so glad that I read them. I'd read some of them years ago, but this is an expanded version with more stories in it. And then they've also been translating the other stories, and they're now 5 volumes, and I've got 2 more, and then there's 2 more after this. And what's really fun is in the second volume, it's not in the first, but in the second volume, they actually have an illustration of the village. So you can see where everybody's house is and where the church is, and all the events happen in this little village. So that's kind of fun. I like maps in books. So anyway, it's really, really delightful stories. More people should know about them. They're considered a modern classic in Italy. And I just highly, highly recommend them. And one of the interesting things, did I say this already? The 2 main characters are the feuding couple there, the Don Camillo and Pepone, the communist mayor. But the third main character is Christ, who's on the crucifix in Don Camillo's church, and who Don Camillo talks to. And he's really so well done. It's just really, he really adds to the story. There's this whole other dimension to the story, and Jesus is just so well presented, and in a very humorous but respectful way, and really wry humor. So anyway, I highly recommend these books. They're just delightful. I look forward to reading. Eventually I'm going to read all of them. But I look forward to reading the next 2 volumes at some point. Right now, I'm going to just try to soldier my way through the rise and fall of the Third Reich. And then I still have to read Joe's Boys for A Year with Louisa May. That's my plan for the rest of February. Anyway, so I highly recommend this book. And that's my review. So I'll talk to you later. Bye.